Welcome to London Property Digest, your essential 10-minute audio recap for staying informed on London's property market. So everyone's been talking about this.
Right.
Potential buyer's market emerging in 2025. What does that actually mean for you if you're thinking of buying a property? Let's dive in.
It's fascinating to see how the overall mood has shifted from hesitant at the end of last year to a more hopeful outlook now. It's like a collective sigh of relief has swept over the market.
Okay, so less doom and gloom. That's good. What's driving this newfound optimism? Lower mortgage rates, perhaps?
That's definitely playing a big role. Mortgage rates have dropped more quickly than many anticipated, and that's making it more attractive for people to consider buying. For you, as a potential buyer, that could mean lower monthly payments and potentially being able to afford a property that was previously out of reach.
That makes a lot of sense.
But,
Are there any potential downsides to these lower rates? Could they be a bit of a trap?
well, one thing to keep in mind is that the future of interest rates is still uncertain. They're expected to rise, but no one knows how quickly or how high they will go. If you buy now with a low mortgage rate and rates suddenly jump, your monthly payments could increase significantly.
So it's not all sunshine and roses. There's still some risk involved. Okay, let's say you're not fazed by that risk. What kind of price growth are we actually talking
My
about here?
predictions suggest a steady nationwide climb, around 3% growth in 2025, followed by 3.5% in 2026, and then a slightly slower 2.5% in 2027. Interestingly, improved affordability is seen as the key driver here. More people being able to afford to buy will naturally push prices up.
All right, so the UK property market as a whole seems to be on a decent trajectory. But what about London specifically? Does this nationwide trend apply to the capital as well?
That's where things get really interesting. For the first time since 2015, London might actually outperform other regions in terms of price growth. We could see a 4% increase in the fourth quarter of 2025. Think about that. If you buy a property in London now, you could potentially see a decent return on your investment in just a few years.
Wow, a London property boom. Who would have thought?
Uh-huh.
What's fueling this potential resurgence?
One factor is the return to office work. Some major companies are requiring employees to be back in the office, and this is drawing people back to the city center, increasing demand for housing.
So the rumors of the office's death were greatly exaggerated. Okay, back to this buyer's market idea. What does it actually mean for someone like you, a potential buyer in 2025? Less competition.
Exactly. We're seeing more properties available per estate agent than we have in a decade. This means you have more options to choose from, more time to make a decision, and, perhaps most importantly, more power to negotiate. Imagine being able to actually haggle on the price of a London property.
That sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any signs that buyers are starting to take advantage of this shift in power?
There are some very promising indicators. For example, this past Boxing Day saw record-breaking activity from sellers listing their properties, and buyer inquiries were up a whopping 20% compared to last year. People are sensing an opportunity, and they're starting to make their move.
So things are definitely heating up. But there's always a catch, isn't there? What could potentially throw a wrench in all of this positive momentum?
Well, there's talk of changes to stamp duty coming in April. This could create some uncertainty and potentially distort the market.
Distort how? What should we be looking out for?
Imagine a sudden rush to buy before the new stamp duty rules take effect. This could lead to a temporary spike in activity and prices, making it harder for you to find a good deal.
So, bit of a frenzy in the short term.
Potentially.
Perhaps. But some experts believe the overall impact of the stamp duty changes will be fairly minimal. The potential savings for most buyers will be relatively small, and it might not be worth rushing into a purchase just to avoid them. So stay calm and carry on, even with the stamp duty changes on the horizon.
Got it. But if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, what's the key takeaway here? What's the one thing you should really focus on if you're considering buying in London?
Affordability. It underpins everything. Incomes are projected to outpace inflation for the second year running, and that's going to give potential buyers more confidence.
So for those who've been holding back, waiting for the right time.
They might just find 2025 as the year to finally take the plunge. It really does feel like we're entering a new chapter in the London property market.
That's funny, right? For so long, all we've heard is crash this and slump that. Now it's all about buyers markets and potential booms. What's your take on this shift?
Well, property markets are cyclical. They go up, they go down, and then they go up again. It's like a giant game of snakes and ladders. Right now, it seems we're climbing that ladder toward a more favorable environment for buyers.
And this climb is fueled by affordability, right? Precisely. When people feel confident they can afford to buy, That's when the market really starts to hum. It's all about that sense of, hey, I can actually do this.
So let's say you're listening to this. Renting in London, dreaming of owning your own place. What's the one piece of advice you'd give?
I'd say dive into research mode. Don't just get swept up in the excitement. Figure out your budget. Explore different neighborhoods. Maybe even talk to a mortgage broker. Knowledge is power, especially in a market as dynamic as this one.
And don't be afraid to negotiate right. This is your chance to potentially snag a deal. That wouldn't have been possible a year or two ago.
Absolutely. The pendulum is swinging in favor of buyers. Use that to your advantage. Don't just settle for the first offer. Push back a little. You might be surprised at what you can achieve.
Okay, so we've got this exciting buyer's market emerging. Affordability is improving. London is potentially on the cusp of a boom. But let's get real for a second. Is there anything on the horizon that could rain on this parade?
Of course, you always have to consider the what-ifs. Global economic conditions, unexpected political events, even a sudden shift in buyer psychology. These are all factors that could impact the market in unpredictable ways.
So basically, don't bet the farm on any single prediction, right?
Exactly. Healthy skepticism is always a good thing when it comes to property markets. Don't assume that what's happening now will necessarily continue in the future.
But even with all the caveats and uncertainties, there's still a sense of optimism, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. There's a feeling that the London property market is entering an exciting new phase, and that's worth paying attention to.
Especially for anyone who's been dreaming of owning a slice of this incredible city. It feels like the stars might be aligning for some people.
Dreams do come true, sometimes with a little help from favorable market conditions.
And that's what makes following the London property market so fascinating. It's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about people's lives, their aspirations, their hopes for the future.
Well said. It's a market driven by human emotions, as much as economic factors, and that's what makes it so unpredictable and captivating.
It's a bit of a roller coaster ride, isn't it?
It certainly is, but that's part of the appeal. You never know what's going to happen next.
So if you're even remotely thinking about dipping your toes into the London property market, now might be the time to start doing your homework.
I couldn't agree more. Familiarize yourself with different neighborhoods, research mortgage options, maybe even connect with a reputable estate agent.
Remember, knowledge is power, especially in a market as dynamic as this one.
And who knows, maybe by this time next year, you'll be sharing your own London property story.
From hopeful renter to savvy homeowner, anything is possible in the ever-evolving world of London real estate.
So stay informed, stay curious, and stay tuned because we'll be back next time with more insights and analysis to help you navigate the London property market.
Subscribe to London Property Digest for the latest updates on the London property market. It's almost like a whole new energy is swirling around the London property market.
It's palpable, isn't it? That sense of possibility, that maybe, just maybe, things are shifting in favor of the buyer.
Exactly. And we've talked about so many factors feeding into this, from dropping mortgage rates to the return of office life, boosting London's appeal. But for someone who's been on the fence for ages, what's the aha moment, the thing that really makes this the year to act?
For me, it comes back to that sense of empowerment you mentioned earlier. In a buyer's market, you're not just at the mercy of sellers' demands. You have choices. You have leverage. That alone can make a huge psychological difference.
So it's not just about the numbers. It's about feeling like you're actually in the driver's seat.
Precisely. And when you combine that feeling with the potential financial benefits we've discussed, lower mortgage rates, the possibility of price appreciation in London, it creates a very compelling case for taking action.
Okay, so let's say you're convinced. What's the first step? Where do you even begin?
Well, I always recommend starting with a deep dive into your own finances. What can you realistically afford? What kind of mortgage payments are you comfortable with? Getting a clear picture of your budget is essential before you even start browsing properties.
It's like laying the foundation before you start building the house, right?
Exactly. Once you have that solid financial foundation, then you can start exploring different neighborhoods, researching properties, and maybe even connecting with an estate agent to get a feel for what's out there.
And remember, even if you're not quite ready to buy right this second, there's no harm in starting the research process now. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Absolutely. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to make a smart decision when the time is right. And who knows, you might even stumble across your dream property while you're browsing.
And that's what makes this all so exciting. It's not just about crunching numbers and analyzing trends. It's about finding a place that truly feels like home.
It's about creating a space where you can build memories, pursue your passions, and live your best life.
Well said. So for anyone out there who's been dreaming of owning a piece of London, 2025 might just be your year.
It certainly has all the makings of a very interesting year for the London property market.
And we'll be here every step of the way to guide you through it, with all the insights and analysis you need to make informed decisions.
So stay tuned, stay curious, and most importantly, stay optimistic.
Subscribe to London Property Digest for the latest updates on the London property market.